Hello, everyone. My name is Paul, and today I'm going to talk you about identity management. Actually, what I'm going to show you today is how we were able to solve a kind of an organizational problem with one of our customers when they had to manage thousands, or hundreds, or even thousands of users. Actually, the number, it doesn't matter. And how we were able to solve this kind of organizational problem. Nowadays, everything is going to the cloud. I mean, everything, even authentication platforms. So today, we're going to see how can we delegate this task to a third-party provider in order to make our life a little bit easier. As I said, I'm Pol Jane. I work as a DevOps engineer in Edrans here in Barcelona. We do a lot of things, as you can see, DevOps, IoT, big data, software development, any kind of migrations, automation, and of course, because everybody loves to save money, cost optimization with several tools, for example, cloudability and so on. We're worldwide. Actually, now we're located in London, Barcelona, in Buenos Aires, and Las Vegas, and hopefully soon somewhere else. Okay, this is our today's journey. First of all, we're going to talk about how to manage identities, how we do it in the normal way. Sorry. Okay. Then I'm going to talk about centralized authentication. What is the traditional way? I mean, these kind of infrastructures made by Active Directory or LDAP servers and so on. We're going to talk about the multi-factor authentication and the different types we have and how can we verify the identity of a user. Pros and cons of on-premises identity provider versus software as a service identity providers. And then we're going to see one example with AWS in Amazon Web Services with roles and permissions and what actually we did with this customer in order to organize all the users so they can have access to different resources depending on the role they have in the company and the department they belong to and in different environments. I mean, development, staging, production, and so on. Afterwards, we're going to see those challenging applications who reject to be integrated because they probably still don't have SAML authentication capabilities or just don't have these features. And at the end, just looking further, what we can do with all this data. I'm going to show you some methods to consume the API from our identity provider and do some really cool dashboards with metrics showing a lot of data. Okay, how we manage the identities. Most of the times, we just want a user belonging to one or different groups, and these people needs access to some application or service in our company. The first image, it comes to our head, if you're a technician probably, it's just to centralize everything into an LDAP or Active Directory server. But then, especially in big companies with large environments and complex infrastructures, they can have, for example, different branch offices. So those people in that offices need to access to our main office and authenticate against our primary LDAP or Active Directory, it doesn't matter. And you have to start tunneling different VPNs, opening ports, and so on. Then you can have external services that needs to reach our main LDAP server or Active Directory. And still, you have to make, you have to open public ports, you have to make different VPN tunnels, and I think it's two things to manage just an authentication mechanism. So let's try to reset and start from zero. At the end, if you start mixing too much services, you can end with something like this, a kind of a mess infrastructure where nobody wants to put a hand because I dare you to change a user attribute and see what happens sometimes. What about something like this? What if these kind of things, onboarding users, offboarding users, changing parameters, or just changing the users from one group to another, or assigning permissions, or changing the permissions, could be done by a human resources guy, for example. It doesn't need to be some technical guy, or just somebody from the IT department, for example, what if we just unplug this user while he's on holidays? We can program this and automate it. We can just assign this user to the other group, and everything is going to be fine because it's really easy to manage. At the end of the presentation, you're going to see some slides about how is the administration panel in one of these identity providers. So you're going to see that it's really easy to add, remove, manage users in just a single web panel. Okay, so how centralized authentication works with single sign-on. Single sign-on means that all the users in the company can use the same access credentials to access to our services. Now security people are thinking, whoa, the same access credentials for all the services? Okay, that's right. We need some other methods to verify the identity of the user. But this way, branch offices, external applications, our applications and services and everything can authenticate the users, again, a single source of truth. We don't have to worry about having different environments in different branches, offices, and everything connected through different VPN tunnels and everything. The point is to get rid of all the underlying layers of complexity, and we just need to think about put a user into a group. This group is, for example, human resources, and this user will have access to different applications they need, Bamboo HR or just human resources management software. If he belongs to the developers group, Jenkins, whatever. Let's see the traditional way. As many of you know, the user tries to log in into our application. The application asks to our, for example, Active Directory or LDAP, and this LDAP says, okay, the access credentials are okay or not, and if they are okay, the user can just log in into the application. For now, that's okay. How it will work if we use an identity provider? What if we can delegate all these things and all this stuff to a third-party provider that can manage all these things? I mean, for example, having one single access credentials for our services can sound a little bit scary at the beginning, but with the proper security methods and security layers I'm going to explain afterwards, it can be better. Life is too short to remember dozens of passwords, and probably IT department is sick of resetting your passwords every week or every time you forgot your password. One more point is that all the access credentials, especially nowadays to be GDPR compliant, must to be stored into a database, must to be properly encrypted and secured. Resiliency, fault tolerance, high availability. So we have to make ourselves the next questions. First of all, what if we just get rid of all of this and delegate this task to a third-party provider? And most important, do we really want to maintain another stack into our infrastructure? I mean, it's a delicate stack. The authentication stack just cannot fail. It needs a lot of resiliency. Nobody wants to, I mean, LDIF, it's not complicated, it's just old. Nobody wants to keep editing files with LDIF syntax, managing attributes, updating, patching. Let's take a look to the single sign-on with multi-factor authentication. We have to be sure, I said before, that we must validate the identity of the user. So we have to be sure that the user is really who he says he is. So the user starts to log in into our application or service. The application asks to the IDP, know that I just removed Active Directory or LDAP. We don't need to know what's inside. We just need to know that it works and it authenticates our users. Then, after the access credentials are verified, the identity provider can send us, for example, some kind of token or multi-factor authentication to our phone, and then you can just authorize the connection saying, yes, it's me, okay, the multi-factor and the access credentials are okay, so the user can log in into the application. Simple as that. One clarification about two-factor authentication versus multi-factor authentication. As you can see on the Wikipedia, it says multi-factor authentication is a method of computer access control which a user is only granted access after successfully presenting several separated pieces of evidence to an authentication mechanism, typically two, at least, of the following categories. Knowledge, something they know. It can be a security question, a password, a token, whatever. Possession, something they have. It can be, for example, an RSA key or some other methods we're going to see afterwards. Or just a key and a smartphone. And inherence. And we can add a few more security layers, but let's not complicate it so much. So two-factor authentication is a subset of multi-factor. It's a kind of multi-factor authentication. It was just a clarification, this slide. For example, the RSA key. I'm pretty sure that most of you, at least once in your life, have one as this, okay? It was really cool a few years ago. I mean, you have these digital numbers in this display, and it's a kind of token that you receive when you try to authenticate with your login credentials or access credentials, but you still have to type a number. And when this bar disappears, it means that that number has expired, so you have to type the new number again. It's pretty old, but it still works. Oh, sorry. Then we have another authentication method, or multi-factor authentication type, which is the YubiKey. This is a little bit more innovative. They also have this kind of wireless YubiKey, so you can just use it with your smartphone. You can attach it to your keys, but if you lost the keys, it's the same. You're lost, you cannot access to the system. I mean, nowadays people can lose the keys, but nobody loses their phones. We have pretty much all of our life inside the phone. SMS. I'm sorry about the picture, but this is what comes to my head when I think about SMS. I think it's a very old protocol and way to transmit data. It's old, it's not encrypted, and it's the same. We have to type some token number into our keyboard in order to access with our access credentials. This is really cool. Nowadays, we can receive a phone call, for example, from Google or from Alexa, and you can answer a question. You can just respond yes or no, I authorize this connection, or I doesn't authorize this connection, or just don't pick up the phone. But we will have even a kind of voice recognition system. So nobody can fake your voice. I mean, it will be a little bit complicated. Then we can also install into our smartphone kind of a tokenizer mobile application. It's the same method, but we don't have to buy a RSA key. I mean, these YubiKey or RSA keys are not really cheap if you have to buy 1,000 keys. And this is for free. You can install Google Authenticator in your phone or many others. You can have different user accounts, so you don't have to use the same token for all your accounts. That's OK. But you still have to type a number. And this number has a expiration time. So I'm a little bit angry every time the number expires and you, shit, I have to type it again. This is one of my favorite. Look at the smile. You just receive a push notification into your smartphone, and it's a yes, no. Also, you can have different information about who's trying to access from, when, and some geolocation IP address. Just approve the connection or deny the connection. It's simple like that. Okay, this sounds really cool, but I mean, what to do with the identity provider? I don't want to hire this service. We want to keep it all in our company. That's okay. You can build your own identity provider. It's a lot of work, but it's not impossible. You can do that. Actually, there are several tools like F5, OneLogin. Okta, I think, doesn't offer anything to build your own on-premises identity provider. So Okta is an software as a service identity provider. How to choose it, the identity provider? I will suggest you to just make an extensive research, try everything, ask for trials, and make a huge list of all your softwares, just trying to decide what softwares are compatible with the two main authentication protocols, SAML2 or OpenID. OpenID is the new generation of OAuth. It was released a few years ago, I think. Pros and cons. Pros, if you use a software as a service identity provider, they already have a vast list of already supported applications. So you just need to have the XML file with the certificates, import into your app, and just apply the change, and it works. Later, we're going to see what happened with those applications that refuse to be integrated. There is a link that you can download the presentation afterwards at home. In this link in Wikipedia, there is a lot of SAML-based products and services with identity providers and everything. So, using a software as a service identity provider, we have more security and resiliency. Our passwords are protected, encrypted in a secure way. We don't have to take care of the encryption methods and anything. This is the provider job. We have high availability, attack protection, and a lot of features that you pay for. Endless possibilities. I mean, it's not just an authentication method and you put all your database users into the cloud in one company and you pay for that. It sounds a little bit stupid. They offer you a lot of different features to, for example, do MAC filtering for phone or portable devices. We can even filter from IP address origin. We can do a lot of things. They also have, we're going to talk about this, an API that we can consume to automate a lot of stuff and consume all the data that you can just go on the web console, or you can just automate it with some Python script or even a bash script. Easy and fast migration. I mean, depends on the number of the applications and the type of the applications, and of course, on the contract type you have with this provider. But the most important thing is having a 24/7 support, so you can just open a ticket. Hey, I cannot integrate this app, and they are experts, so they can help you really fast. The ideal scenario is what we want. Okay, all the company users having the same access credentials for all the applications and services. Involved GDPR compliance. We just want to get rid of all this legal stuff. It's the identity provider job. We have more security layers, multi-factor authentication, easy to use and manage. It's a really simple web dashboard. Bulk import and export. We should be able to import hundreds of thousands of users just creating a CSV file and importing, like, choose the file and upload the file. That's it. And absolute tracking. What happens if something happens, somebody's trying to hack our system, somebody fails the password more than 5 times and is trying the same connection at 1 a.m. from Barcelona and 1:30 from wherever in the United States. The system, you can just configure alerts, so it cannot be possible that you spend only 30 minutes to travel from one part of the world to the other part of the world. Easy migration and compatible with our infrastructure. Okay, this is what a user can see from his Okta panel, in this case. The user authenticates against companyname.okta.com, for example, or the user can just try to reach grafana.companyname.com, and the user is automatically redirected to this panel once logged in, of course, with the access credentials. And you have different types to organize all the applications. The user just needs to tap or click one of the icons, and he's logged in instantly. No passwords, nothing. Of course, we can configure a lot of policies to decide when a user clicks from here, a multi-factor authentication request must be sent to this user or not, or if the user comes from this network, yes, or the users from this other branch office, no. There's a lot of different filters you can put on. You can also use this browser's plugin in order, as you can see, this AWS tab located here is the same that we're watching here, where we can see different AWS environments. So the user just needs to click on one of these environments and he or she is logged in instantly. From an administrator point of view, as you can see, there are 3 main screenshots. I try to make it as easy as possible. We have the main dashboard where we have some information about some tasks require our administrator's attention. We can just, on directory menu, administer people or manage people, manage groups, create, update, and delete as many groups as we want. We have this profile editor, which is quite cool. Some people maybe are thinking, oh, but I have a really complex LDAP and Active Directory structure with a lot of different attributes. Don't worry, you can map everything into your identity provider. We also have directory integrations in Okta. I mean, you don't really need to move everything. Maybe it's too complicated to move all your LDAP and Active Directory infrastructure to the cloud. You can just wait. You install a small Java agent, and all your users can be automatically synchronized in real time to Okta. You have profile mastering, a lot of security features. It's really cool. Well, here we can see how we can manage people, reset passwords, reset the multi-factor. I mean, you don't need technical skills to understand any of this. It's from the UX point of view, it's really cool also because we don't need to go to security, logs, apply a filter, search for this user, search for suspicious activity. We just need to click on the user and then click view logs. And we want to see all the logs since the beginning of time of this user and what happened with this user with all the applications and everything. How many times he tried to log in, how many times he failed, everything. To what applications he has access and with what permissions. There is another icon here where we can edit what kind of role or permissions this user is going to have into this application. The group this user belongs to and some profile data that we can also modify and see. This is what I was talking in the previous slide. You can map, in this case, it's a Jenkins test application and Okta. You can map, create, modify, or delete as much attributes as you want, from Okta to Jenkins to your app, or from your app to Jenkins. This is a really interesting slide. I know the pictures are not so good, but when you click on a user, there's another icon where you can select which role this user is going to have, in this case, in AWS staging production environment. So this user is going to have access to this role and this role and this other role. It can be, for example, just access to S3 or just to RDS or both or full administration or just read-only. We can configure the roles that we want to use. This is the log console into the security tab where we can see geolocation data and activity, and we can apply a lot of filters. Okay, this is the AWS example I was talking before. Role and permission assignments in user and groups. For example, here we have our identity provider, 3 different AWS environments, and 3 teams, or, well, whatever. 2 different teams can have different access in different environments to different resources. In this case, I just put an example of EC2 read-only, EC2 admin, S3, and RDS. So people from DevOps department have full admin access, for example, and developers in production, they only have read-only access. You can group all these AWS environments into Okta in one single icon for each environment, or you can configure it just all the environments in one single icon. So afterwards, AWS is going to ask to this user, what environment do you want to join and with what role? Of course, depending on the role you have assigned in Okta. And what to do with those challenging applications. For example, there's a lot of applications. I just made a short list of 4 examples. Jenkins, by default, has SAML support, so it's just like create the certificates in XML metadata, import into Jenkins, click apply. Well, you have to install a plugin, I think, and that's all. It works. It doesn't have support for OpenID. It's OK. Grafana, until the last version, I think, now with Grafana 5, we have OpenID support, but we were able to integrate Grafana 3, or Grafana 4, I don't remember the version, the previous one, which didn't have SAML didn't have support for SAML or for OpenID neither. So we used an auth proxy. Now I'm going to tell you how it works. Kibana just, well, nowadays I think with XPack it has some kind of access credential system, but we can have just a custom application developed into the company, and it doesn't have support for this. It doesn't have this feature for a single sign-on. So we put a kind of authentication proxy between the application and our identity provider. As you can see in green, actually the colors should be inverted, but anyway, applications with no SAML support just pass through our authentication proxy, ask or communicate with our identity provider. Our identity provider verifies our identity, and then the user can access to the application, Grafana, Superset, and Kibana. And Jenkins is compatible with SAML 2 by default, so it reaches our identity provider directly without the need of any auth proxy stack. It's not black magic. I mean, we are just reverse proxying connections by using some Apache 2 modules. There's a few more, but I didn't want to make an extensive list. So ModAuthMelon is who really makes the SAML negotiation with the identity provider. ModProxy makes the reverse proxying and with all the HTTP petitions or requests. And ModAuthUser just asks you, it allows Apache to ask you for credentials to access to some resource. This is an extract of a Puppet file. Just don't pay attention to the variables. It's an Apache configuration file. But this is what we were using in order to integrate Grafana, which didn't have support at that time with SAML. And we were just injecting some variables in the HTTP header. So Grafana can receive this SAML assertion and the username and the credentials and the role and just let you into the dashboard you're asking to enter, and you can log in just with one click into Grafana. Required valid user, auth type melon. This is redirecting all the requests to the ModAuthMelon. Then ModAuthMelon communicates with the identity provider and we can log in. Oh, okay. After this, looking a little bit further, what can we do with all this information? I said before that most of ADPs has an API. So we can consume this API and get a lot of data. We can just insert all the data into an Elasticsearch, for example, or some kind of time series database, and you can build your own Grafana or dashboard system to make your own graphs or whatever you want to see. But you can also hire another third-party provider, just redirect all the API logs to another service online, and you can have dashboards like this with, I don't know, top 10 active users, users event breakdown, errors by security overtime, events by users separated by user account log, user activation, authentication via multi-factor. This is really nice, so you can see how the outliner of every day is going. And you can just, if you see a peak here, what happened this day? Why we have 3,000 failed passwords or users trying to authenticate? You can set up alarms, separate and filter for different applications. It's a really nice service. I think it's called Sumo-Logic, the service. More monitoring about the user's activity, application login, top 10 users by login attempt count, and so on. It has a lot of features already made, so you don't have to do all these queries to your database. It's already made. And we can also just, we're monitoring until now users' activity, but administrators can cheat also because they have admin access. So we're monitoring also administrators' activity. How many applications has been created, deleted? Sorry, there's no data because this was a demo. But events by severity over time, how many users has this administrator created, attached or detached to some application, and everything. And this is mostly all the presentation. Thank you for your time.